welcome back to the AQA GCSE History, Germany, the Democracy and a Dictatorship 1890 to 1945 revision series. This is episode 8 and looking at the rise of the Nazis in the 1930s. The Nazis appealed to many different groups. The Nazis promised a less humiliating future, which was very popular among the German people. By 1930, membership had grown to over 300,000. After the Great Depression in Germany, the popularity of the Nazi Party soared. Hitler promised to make Germany great again. That appealed to a vast number of unemployed people and young people looking for a brighter future. The slogan for the unemployed people was work and bread. Some people also supported the Nazis because of their anti-communist and anti-Jewish views. Communist and Jewish people were often used as scapegoats for the economic issues in Germany. Some wealthy businessmen who had lost out in the Great Depression turned to the Nazi Party. They approved of the Nazis' anti-communist stance and wanted the economic prosperity Hitler had promised. Hitler's private army, the SA, gave the party a safe military feel, which made it seem organised and disciplined. This appealed to many Germans who wanted structure in their leadership. Hitler was a very energetic and patriotic person. He was able to effectively get across his enthusiasm to his supporters. His speeches brought hope and to those who listened. In the election campaigns of 1932, Hitler was depicted as Germany's saviour. He stood up on the Weimar government and opposed communism. He came across as a strong leader compared to the Weimar government. Hitler's influence over the SA and his undisputed role as the head of the Nazi Party attracted a lot of support. Historians tend to have two different views about how Hitler came to his power. One interpretation is that after the Great Depression, Germany was willing to support any strong extremist party as an alternative to the democratic Weimar government. A second interpretation would be there is only one credible party to turn to after the Great Depression hit, the Nazi Party. It was the only party with a charismatic leader who had mass appeal. By April of 1932, conditions had worsened. The country was desperate for a strong government. President Hindenburg's term had come to an end, so he had to stand for a re-election. He was a national hero, but Hitler decided to run against him. Despite claiming he'd win easily, Hindenburg didn't win the majority in the first election. In the second ballot, he won 53% of the seats, beating Hitler's 36.8%. In July of 1932, the Nazis won 230 seats in the elections for the Reichstag, more than any other party. Hitler demanded to be made Chancellor, but Hindenburg didn't trust Hitler and refused to appoint him. Then in the elections of 1932 in November, the Nazis seemed to be losing popularity. They lost 34 seats. But Hitler struck a deal with another politician, Franz von Papen. If Papen would persuade Hindenburg to make Hitler Chancellor, Hitler would make Papen Vice-Chancellor. Hindenburg hoped that Hitler would be less extreme once he was in power, but also hoped that Hitler wouldn't be able to repair the economy, meaning Hindenburg might be able to regain power and popularity. Hindenburg agreed to Papen's suggestion, thinking that he could control Hitler, but Hitler used his new power to call another election in March of 1933, hoping to make the Nazis even stronger in the Reichstag. In the 1933 election, the Nazis didn't take any chances. They controlled the news media and opposition meetings were banned. They used the SA to terrorize opponents. When a fire broke out in the Reichstag building, Hitler claimed that the communists were a threat to the country. This increased an anti-communist feeling. Hitler was even given emergency powers to deal with the supposed communist threat. He used these powers to intimidate communist voters. These emergency powers granted to Hitler were a turning point in Germany turning into a dictatorship. Hitler said that it was necessary to protect the German people. This meant he faced little opposition. The Nazis won 288 seats, but they still didn't have the overall majority, so Hitler simply made the Communist Party, who had 81 seats, illegal. This gave him enough support in Parliament to bring in the Enabling Act. However, it was passed with threats and bargaining in the March of 1933. This let him govern for 4 years without a parliament. Trade unions were banned in the May of 1933. Then in July of 1933, all political parties, apart from the Nazi Party, were banned. Germany had become a one-party state. The SA had helped Hitler come to power, but Hitler now saw them as a threat. Its members were very loyal to Ernst Röhm, the SA leader. Hitler was worried that Röhm was becoming too powerful, and by 1943 the SA had more members than the German army. The SA was also unpopular with the leaders of the German army and with some ordinary Germans. Ernst Röhm was the biggest threat to Hitler, but Hitler also was worried about the members of the Nazi Party who disagreed with his views. Between the 29th of June and 30th of June of 1934, Hitler sent more men to arrest or kill Röhm and other leaders of the SA. Hitler also used this opportunity to remove some of his political opponents. Altogether, several hundred people were killed or imprisoned. Hitler claimed that those who had been killed had been plotting to overthrow the government, so he declared their murders legal. This became known as the Night of Long Knives, and it was a triumph for Hitler. Hitler's ruthlessness and brutality showed that Hitler was above the law. In August of 1934, Hindenburg died. Hitler used the opportunity to combine the post of Chancellor and President and make him Commander-in-Chief of the army. He called himself Der Führer, meaning the leader in German. This was the beginning of the dictatorship. At this point, Germany was reorganized into several different provinces. Each province was called a Gau, with a Gauleiter, a royal Nazi, in charge of each. Above them were the Reichsleiter, who advised Hitler, for example Goebbels, who was the chief of the German police. At the top and in the absolute control was the Führer, Hitler. Every aspect of life was carefully controlled, and only by loyal Nazis could be successful. If you want to find out more about the Knights of Long Knives, there is a good documentary. But if you want to know more about the wider rise of the Nazis during the 1930s, then there's a good series of videos made by the Khan Academy, and I'll link both of those in the description below. So that's the end of episode 8 of the AQA GCSE History, Germany, the Democracy and a Dictatorship, 1890 to 1945 revision series. Next episode we'll be looking at Nazi propaganda. Thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed.